Hey everyone, super excited to get started with Home Team Heroes Football. I am Jeff French, Eth Frenchy on Twitter and in our community. I've got Cooper here with me, Chicken Coop 08, right?
Yep.
Isn't that your handle,
Yep.
Chicken Coop 08? And so what we're going to do is I'm going to take you through the different heroes that are in the 2023 football set list. Cooper is here to help me with some color commentary on kind of a little bit more about the player inspirations themselves, and we're just going to jump right into it. And really excited to finally unveil the 2023 Home Team Heroes football set list. So let's kick it off, and starting with none other than America's team, and we got the trigger man for America's team, Dak Prescott, inspiring the hero Attack. So Attack is a super big fan of Dak Prescott and the Cowboys. You see he's got this laser gun here. I think it fits really well. Some of the attributes that you'll see on this particular hero as you begin to pull cards and color pops. I think he's a really great hero. And Cooper, what are you looking at this year for Prescott and the Cowboys at large?
Yeah, so we know the Cowboys every single year that they have a very, very good offense. They got a lot of really good pieces around Dak Prescott, including CeeDee Lamb, one of the best receivers in the National Football League, and Tony Pollard, who really broke out onto the scene last year and is obviously an alpha back there. He's going to get 20 carries and he's going to catch the football a lot, which really helped Dak Prescott out. They're going to throw the ball a lot because they want to score a lot of points. It's what the Cowboys do year in and year out. So I'm expecting a really big year from Dak and the Cowboys this year. I mean, we saw last year when Dak got hurt, they were still an elite offense without Dak. So having Dak there, who is twice as good as Cooper Rush was, they should do really big things this year. And I'm expecting a high ceiling out of them this year. There's a chance they could beat the Eagles and win that division.
Yeah, come on now. Love them or hate them, the Cowboys, America's team, going back from the 80s, 90s, but they're definitely a polarizing fan base. I saw a recent thing that had them rated the most hated fans, but obviously they have a huge fan base for the Cowboys, and they're definitely an interesting storyline every single year. So next up, let's keep it moving. We got 30 heroes to get through here. Next up is we're going to go out to the West Coast, and we're going to pick up a hero that is inspired by Mr. Cooper Kupp. And this hero's name is Barreler. For those who may not know, the name Cooper is a barrel maker. I happen to know that because I named my son Cooper. And so I will take some credit for wanting to kind of put the barreler together. I kind of had an idea. We had a couple of different ideas of how this hero was going to work as far as how he was going to use that barrel to bring justice to the world. But Barreler, another hero, and he's inspired by a really top end receiver, Cooper Kupp. So let's talk about him a bit, Cooper. What do you have for Mr. Kupp?
Yeah, so we know when Cooper Kupp is playing football, he's probably the best receiver in the league in terms of fantasy because he gets all of the targets there in Los Angeles. We saw when he was fully healthy for a full year at Matthew Stafford, he had the wide receiver triple crown, which is leading the league in receptions, yards, and touchdowns. And to top it all off, he also got a Super Bowl MVP that year. Probably the greatest single wide receiver season we've ever seen in the history of football. And that's what Cooper Kupp's capable of when he's fully healthy. There's a little bit of question marks around his health right now going into the season, recovering from last year's injury. But we know when he's on the field, he's the best in the league probably. So that's what you should expect out of him if he gets healthy enough to play this year.
Yeah, he's a gritty player. I've enjoyed watching him play. He's definitely a hard nosed, old school type receiver. Really enjoy watching Cooper Kupp, and Barreler will be watching with great intent as he watches his favorite player, Cooper Kupp. Next up, we have a hero that is named Bayou, and Bayou, you can see him here. He's got this snake. He's got this net, and this is inspired by a guy that's from the heart of the Bayou. And that is none other than Jamar Chase, and he's another one that is a dude. So, what's your thinking on Jamar Chase, Cooper? I know this is a hero that you were particularly. I know you had a lot of input in this one, and I know you were excited about seeing this character come to life. And I know you think a lot of the player that inspired him as well.
Yeah, I mean, Jamar Chase last year, when he was healthy, he had the most fantasy points per game when he was on the field. When he's out there, he is an alpha dog in that big Cincinnati offense led by Joe Burrow. They're one of the most efficient offenses in football, and he's the big deep threat. He's catching 60-yard, 50-yard bombs from Joe Burrow, and what that leads to is a high volume of yards. So what we could see from Jamar Chase this year, realistically, if Jamar Chase is a good year and so is Joe Burrow, he could realistically put up 12 to 14 touchdowns this year, which is an absolute insane mark for a receiver, as well as add on about 1,500 yards. I mean, the ceiling for this guy is astronomically high. We know that going into this year. That's why he's going number 2 and number 3 in most 1QB fantasy drafts, because they know how good Jamar Chase is. He was obviously a can't miss player for this list. We had to get him in here. So I'm glad he's here.
Yep. No, and a great hero. So this next one, this guy right here, when he comes in, he's a big bad dude, Bison. And this is inspired by another big bad dude, Josh Allen, obviously quarterback of the Bills. But Cooper, it's more than just the quarterback of the Bills that inspired this hero. Why don't you take us a little deeper on actually the hero inspiration? I'll throw this one over to you and tell us a little bit about the hero himself.
Yeah, so we knew when Josh Allen was coming out of high school, he was not a highly regarded recruit at all, actually, coming out of high school. He had to go the JUCO route. And even after going through the JUCO route, the only big school that he really could go to was Wyoming, the University of Wyoming. Very small for a big D1 school. It's on the smaller end. And he went there and he balled out, and they saw the arm talent, they saw the build, and they said, that guy's tooled up. And he really was the first one of these quarterbacks that got drafted for his tools. He got drafted because he had a big arm, and they saw what he could become, and he became what they saw. And it's really led now in the NFL draft. If you're a big toolsy quarterback, you're able to go like top 5 now. Look at Anthony Richardson this past year. Kind of the same thing. Real tooled up quarterback goes really high in the draft because they're kind of hoping they're going to hit a Josh Allen. And we know what Josh Allen is capable of when he's on the field. We've seen it the past 3 years. This guy has exploded onto the scene. He's going to be an MVP candidate probably for multiple years to come. And he was on the cover of Madden this year, if that doesn't tell you all you need to know. I mean, guys,
in Wyoming, their mascot for the Wyoming is buffaloes,
it's a buffalo, I believe. Cowboys. No, it's a cowboy. Right? It's a cowboy riding a horse. Yeah, that's right. But we know Wyoming's known for their bisons and buffaloes, so that's what I think of when I think of Wyoming.
I agree. Yep. So that's why I knew there was a tie-in back to this. It wasn't just the fact that it was the Bills, and that was an interesting when we were kind of coming up with concepts on the heroes. I know that was one that resonated, but then to see the way this guy came together, I mean, he's kind of got almost like some Incredible Hulk type vibes. And when you look at Josh Allen in the pocket, I mean, he's a big quarterback, right? And
he's a big dude.
And I think for where he's at, he's their franchise guy. And then for his hero, for Bison to want to take on an inspiration for him and really bring together a superhero persona, I really think that Bison really kind of came together great. And so I'm real happy about that hero. Next up is another one that I'm super excited about as far as, I could say that on every single one of these, but so I'll try to tone that back because you'll just hear me saying it over and over. But next up is Boltage, and Boltage's favorite player is Justin Herbert. And you see him here. He's got this lightning bolt that he is about to toss. Herbert, cannon of an arm. Boltage, his superpower is to toss that bolt, and he can fling that thing with the best of them as well. So another one that I think is a really cool hero inspired by, a player that all the talent in the world, right? I mean, he looks flashy out there, and he just has to put the pieces together. So what are you thinking on Herbert and his prospects for the year?
I think what we saw from Herbert, so we saw Herbert's rookie year where he broke all of those rookie records without even playing all the games in the season. And then he came out his sophomore year and he absolutely balled out. And of course, his sophomore year, his defense was really, really lackluster, so they couldn't really make a deep playoff run. But Herbert finished that year, I believe, as either the quarterback 2 or 3 in fantasy. I mean, it was a very big year for Herbert. Then he goes into year 3. He gets banged up. His receivers get banged up. I don't think we saw 100% of Justin Herbert last year. I think we saw possibly like 75% of Justin Herbert. So going into this year, he's going to have a healthy Mike Williams. He's going to have a healthy Keenan Allen. He's going to have a new receiver in Quentin Johnson. He still has Austin Eckler, and he still has all the talent in the world, and he should be 100%. The rib injury should be gone by now. He should come out this year, and he should be able to throw that rock around. And I'm expecting a really big year out of Justin Herbert. This is kind of his last shot to really establish himself as, I'm one of the top contenders in football. I'm up there with Patrick Mahomes and Joe Burrow, Josh Allen. I'm on that level of those guys. And this is kind of his make or break year for that, to get in that discussion. So I'm expecting him to have a little bit of a chip on his shoulder this year.
Yeah, and a lot of people in the hobby obviously expected him to kind of go into that A tier of quarterbacks, and that's why a lot of his cards have gotten the pricing that they've gotten and that sort of thing. So he's a guy that a lot of collectors are locked in on. He's an important guy for a lot of people's portfolio, the guys that are collecting football. And I think he's going to be an exciting, him being an inspiration for Boltage. He's going to be an exciting one to watch in our fantasy points and that sort of thing. Next up is one that we have seen now for a while. I do absolutely love this one. He is my favorite of the heroes, Barocious. Um, the whole tiger and the suit and the hat. I was able to have a good hand in bringing this character to life. A lot of folks had a hand in, how these are so much of a team effort in how we kind of brainstorm and come up with these concepts. And I think Carafine has credit for the name Barocious. I think she was the first one that tossed that name out. We knew what we wanted him to look like, and we knew how we wanted this inspiration. I'm sorry, I keep banging my desk here, but this hero, just one that I love. He was actually the coat, the cane he's carrying, the hat. A lot of that is actually inspired by I sent over a clip from an episode of Seinfeld where Kramer was mistaken for a pimp and said, "This is kind of the vibe I want for Barocious." Just that really just super swag, and Kramer's walking down the street with this certain step that he's doing. It was really just something that stuck in my head. And then adding the tiger, bringing that type of weaponry to the table for Barocious to have. He's going to be following Joe Burrow closely. Even though Mahomes is the face of football, and we'll talk about the hero that he inspired later, Barocious, I would say, is probably the frontline face of the home team heroes. And it's just a lot of it's just because his character has really come together, and it's just got so much pizzazz and oomph to it. But let's talk about the player that inspired him, Cooper. What do you have about the man that doesn't need much introduction?
Yeah, I mean, with Joe Burrow, we know he's cool, calm, collected. He's confident, and it's just fun to watch, man. He looks like when he plays and you watch him play, he seems like he's so cocky. He's so full of himself. And then you hear him in interviews and other players speak of him, and they say how he's super polite. He's one of the nicest guys in the league. In all of his interviews, I see he gives the right answers. So he's obviously very smart, and I think it's just really fun to watch, man, because he plays like he's $1 million bucks. And then off the field, you feel like he's just another guy on that team. And that's the kind of guy I personally really like to support, guys like that. And we know they're putting the pieces around him to win. They want to win. This is their chance to win. They got Jamar Chase. They got T. Higgins. They have Tyler Boyd. They got Joe Mixon. They keep upgrading his O-line every year to keep him protected. That defense is very, very good. I mean, they're going to be good for years to come. And I think we're just seeing the start of a really good run here by the Bengals.
I agree. They're a fun team to watch for sure. And for me, as a Panthers fan, I have to try to look for some fun in other teams. All right. And moving on, let's talk about a guy now who inspired a hero that has got just absolute speed for days. The hero's name is Cheetah. And you can look at the color palette that he has taken on there in his super suit. And you may be able to guess that he is inspired by none other than the Miami Dolphins' Tyreek Hill. Was the fastest, I think, in the NFL there for a while. And I'm not sure if he still has that crown today. I think a young guy out of the state of South Carolina here in our neck of the woods may have taken that crown, but he's still lightning fast, gets behind defenses, and Cheetah I think really is a great inspiration for what this player is on the field and what he brings to the table. And Cheetah will certainly bring a lot to the home team heroes, and he'll be cheering on Tyreek Hill this year. What do you think of Tyreek Hill in the season you look for out of him, Cooper?
I mean, we know what Tyreek Hill is, man. He was transformative on that Chiefs offense before Patrick Mahomes got there when it was just Alex Smith. He was a game changer on that offense. And then Patrick Mahomes comes in, he takes another step forward. And then he goes to Miami in a very big trade, which at the time I was really confused for because I was like, why did the Chiefs want to get rid of him? Obviously, the Chiefs ended up being perfectly fine without him. But he transformed that Miami Dolphins team. Going into the season, that Dolphins team, they were good. They had Jalen Waddle. They thought they'd found their number one receiver, and they were going to be good. They get Mike McDaniel. They make this big trade for Tyreek Hill, and all of a sudden, when Tua is on the field, they're a Super Bowl contender team. He transformed that offense. He allows Jalen Waddle to get more open, and they're easily the best 1-2 duo in the NFL, considering that Jalen Waddle would go to like 20 NFL teams to be the number one receiver. And him being the number 2 is absolutely wild. But it kind of just goes to show how good Tyreek Hill is. He has the fastest sprint speed in game, I believe, of any wide receiver. This offseason, he ran in a track meet for fun and absolutely dusted the competition. I mean, the speed is next level on this guy. And he's a game changer when he's on the field. I'm expecting a big year, but I feel like with him, almost every year you can expect a big year. That's the kind of player he is.
Is Hyatt faster than him or no?
The Jalen Hyatt, they said in practice that he recorded a sprint speed faster than Tyreek Hill. We're going to
Yes,
see in
we'll
the
see if he
game,
can
though,
do it in
this
the
year.
game.
Yeah, I mean, Jalen,
Yeah.
we can talk about Jalen Hyatt with the next player, though.
Yeah, so let's just segue straight into that. So next up, we have the inspiration that he was inspired by the quarterback of the New York Football Giants, and that's Daniel Jones, and his name is Coinslot. And when Coinslot created his superhero persona, his favorite player was Daniel Jones, and Daniel Jones, Danny Dimes, throwing those dimes, and Coinslot is looking to throw those dimes as well. And those dimes pack quite a punch, but this is a player he'll be locked in on the Giants all season. Excuse me. This is a hero that will be locked in on the Giants all season, and he will enjoy watching his favorite player, Daniel Jones, ball out. And then we can talk a little bit about that receiver that I just mentioned. So how do you like the Giants and Daniel Jones for the year?
Yeah, I mean, we saw the Giants made the playoffs last year and made a decent playoff run in their first year under Brian Daboll. The thing that really blew my mind was Daniel Jones didn't have a number one receiver in that offense. There wasn't an alpha dog receiver in that locker room. It was basically him and Saquon versus the world out there. The O-line wasn't amazing either, and they were still able to win games. And I believe a lot of that is on Daniel Jones' ability to win games. And now you add Darren Waller. They make a move for Darren Waller this offseason. Darren Waller, obviously an elite tight end. He got drafted as a receiver, so that should all be all you need to know. He's really more like a receiver than a tight end, but the preseason, Waller's looking like a game changer in that Giants offense. They bring back Saquon, and then they draft Jalen Hyatt in the draft. I mean, we saw what he did at Tennessee. Dude has next level speed. He was getting behind that Alabama defense like it was nothing when they played against them. So is that going to translate to the NFL? I don't know, but I think if it does, he has an elite deep threat. Combine that with Saquon and Darren Waller's ability to catch more mid-range routes, this offense could be very, very dangerous, and they can make a real good run this year, I think.
Yeah, I'm excited to watch them play. I'm excited to watch Hyatt again from our local high school. We went to school with Cooper, and just a player that we're locked in on. And I assume you haven't been playing any Fortnite with him lately, right? He's been focused on football, hopefully not Fortnite.
Yep. Yeah, he's locked in.
All right. Next up is we're going to make a move to another team that absolutely just had to be in the set. Iconic franchise up there in Green Bay. The history, Lambeau Field, everything that's going on. We had to have a hero to represent that town, that team. And when he grabbed his nuclear-infused hot dog, that fan did, and he started feeling his superhero powers, he wanted to look to none other than, again, another trigger man. He's inspired by Jordan Love, and he took on the name Cupid. And from there, we wanted to take a unique spin on the idea of Cupid, and we wanted to kind of toughen him up a little bit. So you see that this Cupid, he flies more with a cape and superpowers than he does with wings, yet doesn't have wings. And his bow, when he draws it back, he's looking to do some damage with that bow and arrow that he's got. But this is our take on Cupid. He is inspired, and he is the biggest fan in the world of the quarterback of the Green Bay Packers, Mr. Jordan Love. So the post-Rodgers era is upon us. Green Bay, this historic franchise. What are you thinking, Cooper?
I'm absolutely bought in on Jordan Love. Going into the preseason, I had a lot of question marks about Jordan Love. I didn't know if he was going to be that guy, but he looked amazing this preseason. I am all in on this Green Bay offense. I think they're going to be the real deal this year. I think Aaron Jones is going to break out this year, and he's going to be a top 5 running back. Last year, he didn't get all the touchdowns. He still got the yards. I think this year he's going to get the touchdowns. He's going to have a monster year. I think Christian Watson has a chance to become a top 10 receiver in football this year. And I think it's all going to stem from Jordan Love. And I think Jordan Love is going to he's going to blow everyone's expectations out of the water. People are coming in with low expectations, and I think he's going to show everyone wrong this year. I'm fully bought in on this offense. He looks so good in preseason. So I'm really, really excited to see what he could put together. I think he learned a lot from Aaron Rodgers, and I think we're going to see him put it to use this season.
Speaking of Aaron Rodgers, there was a guy that had a nuclear-infused hot dog down in New York, and he turned into a superhero inspired by Aaron Rodgers, former trigger man of the Green Bay Packers, now the man there at the Jets with a new number, wearing number 8, and that is Double Check. Double Check, another of our kind of frontline heroes that we used in the marketing, and he is inspired by Aaron Rodgers. He's Aaron Rodgers' biggest fan. He just became Aaron Rodgers' biggest fan as he came to the Jets. So a whole new world here for Mr. Rodgers. What's your take on him, Cooper?
Yeah, I mean, Aaron Rodgers, We saw what he did at Green Bay. I mean, dude is probably one of the greatest talents NFL has ever seen. I mean, his arm strength in his first couple of years was like unparalleled. We saw him win a Super Bowl with Green Bay. We saw him put up multiple MVPs with Green Bay. No one's doubting the player Aaron Rodgers is. And this Jets team last year, they got some really good pieces in that draft. They got Sauce Gardner, who is an absolute game changer on that defense. They got Garrett Wilson, another absolute game changer on the offense. They got Breece Hall, who's looking like he's an alpha running back in that offense. And they were kind of just a quarterback away last year. Everyone was saying they're a quarterback away. And what do they do this offseason? They probably get the best quarterback they could have gotten. And, I mean, everyone's really high on this team. I'm high on this team. They got Hard Knocks over there, so the NFL is obviously high on this team. And, yeah, I think they could really make some noise this year, and especially being a team from New York. They got a big fan base. People are going to be really excited for this team. So we're going to see how the year plays.
They're definitely a deep and loyal fan base there that have been through a lot of off years, and so it's an interesting storyline too. Certainly, Aaron Rodgers moving over, and I'm sure we'll be talking about the stuff that Double Check is watching this year and what he's seeing out of his favorite player. So next up, let's stay nearby. Let's move down to Philly, and we'll find a hero that is inspired by Mr. Jalen Hurts. His name is Eagle Eye. Hurts really good at surveying the field and finding that open guy, and Eagle Eye really kind of takes on that type of same superhero theme, being inspired there by Jalen Hurts. I will just tell you that Jalen Hurts is a guy. Philadelphia is generally, look, I don't hate any teams or fan bases at all, and I'm not just saying that to appease people that are in our community. But if I were to kind of have one that I see, just stemming out of the Braves and Phillies rivalry, kind of leaks over into the Eagles. Not a team that I pull for, but I absolutely pull for Jalen Hurts. He is one of my absolute favorite players that I've ever seen come into the NFL. When he was benched in that national championship game for Tua, and the way he responded to that, and what he showed, and that was tough for him. Like and for him to do what he did, and then to prove himself, and now he's where he is in the contract, and I'm a huge fan of that. I say kid because he's a lot younger than me, but he's obviously a grown man doing grown man things, and I'm a big fan of him, and so is Eagle Eye. Eagle Eye will be watching with that Eagle Eye everything that the Eagles do this year. What do you think of them? What do you think of Mr. Hurts? Prospects for them to kind of go back to the Super Bowl again? What kind of season are you looking for out of them, Cooper?
Yeah, so I mean, we saw. Again, I want to go back to Jalen Hurts' story through college. Man, it's so inspirational. Him going to Oklahoma after he'd been benched for a whole season in Alabama, and then just proves himself again, comes a draft pick, comes into Philadelphia as Carson Wentz's backup, wins the job, and leads the team to a Super Bowl. It's an awesome story, 10 out of 10 story. They should make a movie on it one day. But Jalen Hurts, I mean, this is a guy who I've been talking with a lot of these guys about the team around them, because in football, the team around you matters a lot to your success. And Jalen Hurts has probably the best possible situation out of any guy on this list. They have the number one offensive line in football. He's got two top wide receivers, and A.J. Brown, who's an absolute alpha receiver, and then Devante Smith, a deep threat that can get behind you any second. Dallas Goedert's a really good tight end, and they got a nice little running back by committee. A lot of the good teams do that nowadays. And we saw last year what Jalen Hurts was capable of when he was given the reins in this offense, and I think we're going to see it again. I don't see this team slowing down. I think they're going to be right in it again this year. They're going to be hunting another Super Bowl appearance. They're actually going to be hunting another Super Bowl win. That's what they're going for this year. I mean, they got the team to do it, and it's only a couple more years before they have to pay these guys. And once the pockets start opening for some of these guys, we're going to see them fall apart. So they're going to have a couple more years to try to do this. So I think they're going to be pedal to the floor. They're going to be trying to doing it this year.
Yeah, well, Eagle Eye is a hero that I definitely want to collect. He and I both share a strong affinity for Jalen Hurts, and I hope that Eagle Eye will be pleased with what he sees out of his favorite player this year. Next up, let's move down to a hero that is inspired by the quarterback from the Windy City, Mr. Justin Fields. And the name of this hero is Force Field, and he wields powers of force fields, able to wrap them around enemies, able to throw them, toss them, use them basically as the different types of force fields as weapons. So really powerful hero there, really a unique concept as far as the way his hero weaponry and whatnot works. But let's talk about his favorite player. What are you thinking for Mr. Justin Fields and the Bears? The
Yeah,
Bears.
I just want to add that this is one of my personal favorites. I want to say he's my number one favorite, but he's up there for sure. Justin Fields, though, he almost single handedly won me a
You
fantasy
mean
league
the
last
art
year.
and the hero concept is one of your favorites?
Yeah, I love
Or
the
you mean the
concept behind force field. I think it's a great concept for the hero.
Gotcha.
I
Yeah, no,
love
I
the
like it a
concept.
lot too. Yep.
Yeah, but Justin Fields basically won me a fantasy championship last year, so you could say I'm a big fan of his. I mean, when he exploded last year, and when they finally let him start running the ball, we saw what that offense was capable of with him finally being able to run the ball. And Lamar Jackson's kind of broken down this stigma on running quarterbacks, because before Lamar Jackson, there's the stigma that running quarterbacks can't stay healthy. They're not going to last long in the NFL. Don't waste your time. Then Lamar Jackson comes in, and we saw what Lamar Jackson was capable of. So that's kind of changed the perspective on mobile quarterbacks. And Justin Fields is going to benefit from that because this guy is an elite rusher. He can get you 1,200 yards, 10 touchdowns on the ground, and then you add on maybe another 3,000 yards through the air, 25 passing touchdowns. That is a monster year for a quarterback. And I think his rushing upside makes him a top fantasy quarterback. And they got DJ Moore this offseason. They are investing heavily in this team. They are in win now mode right now. They think they got their guy, and they're building around him like he's their guy. So I'm expecting big things from the Bears, and I think a lot of other people are too.
Yeah, I think that, like, when you look at the modern NFL and how the formula to win Super Bowls with these guys on early quarterback type contracts, I think a lot of that too stems into their willingness to take the reins off and let them go. I think it's just a bit of a mindset shift that they're looking for these peak years more than the longevity. I mean, maybe not the best thing in the world for the players, but I'm sure the players want to play, right? And so, but I agree
Teams
that
want to
they
win.
seem to be willing to take the reins off and let a guy be the guy like Fields. And you're right, when he's able to use his legs, it's a game changer. We saw that in Carolina as huge Carolina fans. We saw that for years with Cam Newton. When Cam Newton was willing to put his head down and run you over, it opened up defenses, and he won an MVP because of what he was willing to be. So I agree with you that could be another interesting storyline to watch. So now let's move to another hero that is one of my personal favorites. I really love the concept here. The hero's name is Gravedigger, and he is ready to put his enemies in the ground. He is inspired by another top-level receiver out of a team that we've already kind of talked about, out of Buffalo, and he is inspired by none other than Stefan Diggs. He is Diggs' biggest fan, and he is ready to put a hurting on some people and put them in the ground the same way that Diggs does a lot of DBs in the NFL. So a really cool concept. I love the old. It's kind of got some Skeletor vibes. I was a big He-Man kid that was in my generation, was Skeletor and He-Man. And you had Skeletor had the skeleton face, but then he had all the flesh and stuff like a human. And I don't know, this one definitely gives me some Skeletor vibes. But it's a really interesting hero concept, I think, and I really dig it. No pun intended. But his favorite player, Stefan Diggs. Let's talk about him. What do you think of his season? We already kind of hit the Bills, but let's talk about Diggs specifically.
Yeah, so I mean, Stefan Diggs was a elite wide receiver when he was in Minnesota with Case Keenum as his quarterback. I mean, I'm assume almost all of us have seen the Minneapolis Miracle, probably one of the coolest plays in NFL history. To be honest with you, him scoring that touchdown, taking his helmet off, throwing his arms up in the air, awesome moment. And then he goes to Buffalo, and Josh Allen, like, there was glimpses of Josh Allen being great, and when Stefan Diggs got there, it was a game changer. He changed that offense. He made Josh Allen what he is. And I think Josh Allen also made Stefan Diggs what he is now. And that is a top 5 receiver in the National Football League. I mean, we know what we're going to get out of Stefan Diggs. He's an elite wide receiver. He's going to go out there every year and absolutely ball out. He's got an elite quarterback also supporting him. And again, that team's trying to win now. So those are the kind of teams you want to invest in, the teams that are here to win, because they're going to throw the ball. They're going to try to score as many points as they can because they want to win. And yeah, he's awesome here. I also love his concept and his design, and I'm expecting a big year out of Diggs too.
Love it. All right, next up is a receiver that is a bad man. He's going off the board number 1 in most fantasy drafts. I know if I had 1-1 pick, there's no way I could personally fade him in a fantasy draft. And he inspired a hero for us named Jay Jets. So Jay Jets is the world's biggest fan of the hottest young receiver in the league, Mr. Justin Jefferson. So Talk to us about what Jay Jets can expect to see out of his favorite player this year. How satisfied do you think he'll be at the end of the year, looking back
He's going to be.
on
I
what
think he'll be
Jefferson put together?
extremely satisfied. And you said that Jay Jets is his biggest fan. I don't know. I'm a massive Justin Jefferson fan myself. Another guy. He won me that fantasy league.
You're
last
not
year, too.
running around in a superhero costume, man. Jay Jets is his
That's true.
biggest fan.
I
You'll
also
have
don't
to
have
be number two.
superpowers, but
Yeah,
I
you'll have
mean,
to be number two.
Justin Jefferson, he came in that rookie year. There's a lot of question marks around him that rookie year. People didn't really know what he was. They were like, did he benefit from just playing from Joe Burrow? And it's clear as day now, obviously, Joe Burrow benefited from having Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson in college. I mean, I feel like that's almost an undoubtable question at this point. But Justin Jefferson came in his rookie year, explodes onto the scene, comes out year two, establishes himself as he's either that number one or number two guy with Cooper Kupp after his second year. It was clearly established. Then he comes into year three and he takes another leap forward. And now he is clearly the best receiver in the National Football League. The reason that Vikings offense is elite is because of Justin Jefferson. If he isn't on the field in that Vikings offense is one of the worst in the league. He's an absolute game changer when he's on the field. There's a reason he's going number one overall in fantasy drafts. I had a number one overall pick this year. I took Justin Jefferson. I'm rocking with Justin Jefferson. And I think you're crazy if you don't rock with Justin Jefferson this year. I'm expecting another monster year out of him. I could see 1,500 yards, 10-plus touchdowns very easily. I think his floor this year is like 1,200 yards, which just says a lot to how good of a player he is. And I think he could end his career as one of the greatest receivers we've ever seen in football history.
Man, you're already putting the crown on him. I mean, he's still young.
In his first 3 years ever, I'm pretty sure he's the most receiving yards in your first 3 years, and it's by like 500 plus yards. It's a lot.
He's no doubt about it. I mean, you look at the body of work that's there, and he is him, right? But there's NFL's tough, man. You gotta stay healthy. You gotta stay on the right team. Contracts need to go well. You gotta keep a good sane head on your shoulders. I mean, we've seen some really good players get upended in different ways. So I'm not quite ready to crown him with some of those things yet, but I will completely concede that as it stands today, he's the best receiver in the NFL, and certainly has opportunities to really write his own history book for himself, so to speak. All right. Next up, here is a hero that looks over the Steel City. He had to be tough. He had to be gritty. And I think G-Saw is that. I mean, he's got that big chainsaw, and he's ready to go to town and take down some enemies. I think he kind of really fits everything about the city of Pittsburgh, and he is inspired by the running back for Pittsburgh, and that is Naji Harris. So let's talk a little bit about the Steelers. Very much, I think, in a bit of a rebuild. I saw they just named Pickett captain and made some changes in that. And what are you looking for their season, Coop?
This team is not rebuilding. This team wants to win. Mike Tomlin is one of the greatest NFL coaches in recent memory we've seen. And Najee Harris is an established running back in that team. He is the top dog running back. He's going to get 20 touches. He's going to get 5 receptions a game. He is the alpha running back in that offense. I am expecting personally Kenny Pickett to take a big step forward this year. And when a quarterback takes a big step forward, the receivers are going to take a step forward, and so are the running backs. We know this defense is legit. Minka Fitzpatrick, you got TJ Watt. TJ Watt probably being the best, if not the best, he's one of the best defensive players in the NFL. And this team could really compete. I mean, I don't know if they can compete with the Bengals, but we're going to see. They're a really good team, and I think they're going to make some noise this year and surprise some people.
All right. We'll see how all that plays out. Next up, let's move down to Jacksonville, and this is a hero that is inspired by a player that, frankly, I have a little bit of mixed emotions on, because here we're in the heart of college football country, and our rival is to the Gamecocks is Clemson. And we had to watch Trevor Lawrence really just kind of shove the ball down our team's throat for multiple years. But Lawman here is inspired by Trevor Lawrence, and he's a huge Trevor Lawrence fan. So we do have a lot of Trevor Lawrence fans in this area. We have a lot of Trevor Lawrence fans in our office, and but none bigger than Lawman. So he's excited to see what Trevor Lawrence puts together. And while I may have some mixed feelings on the fact that he was the leader of that Clemson Tiger team, what I am willing to concede is that he seems to, again, be the guy that really thought he was, hell, when he was 15 years old, right? So what are your thoughts
Yeah.
on Trevor Lawrence, Coop?
Yeah, I mean, Trevor Lawrence, we've known about Trevor Lawrence since he was 16. He's been the chosen one. He came out of high school. He was like the highest rated quarterback recruit ever out of high school. Goes to Clemson, wins the starting job his freshman year, wins a national championship, continues to win. As annoying as it was, he had an insane career at Clemson, goes number 1 overall, easiest pick of the draft that night. And I think year one, he really, really suffered from Urban Meyer. Urban Meyer was not a good NFL coach. He's an amazing college coach, next level college coach, terrible NFL coach. And I think that's what he suffered from. Then year two, they bring in a new coach, new vibe, new system. And we saw the Trevor Lawrence we expected to see out of high school that we thought we were going to see at the next level in the NFL. And I believe this man, he's lived up to the hype. And I think this year he's going to take another step forward. This offense, they added an elite wide receiver in Calvin Ridley. If you do not remember, Calvin Ridley was a top 10 receiver in football prior to him, getting suspended for gambling. It's not the best in the world, but he was elite. And I've seen the videos in camps, man. Calvin Ridley looks just as elite as he did when he left. These are his prime years coming up. They had a good receiver in Christian Kirk last year, but Christian Kirk isn't an alpha receiver. He's a slot receiver, a lot of short receptions. And Calvin really could come in and be that alpha number 1 receiver that could change this offense. And this offense can make a lot of noise. The AFC South's a weak division. They should have an easy time winning that division. And yeah, I'm expecting them to make a lot of noise this year. They're one of my picks to really outperform this year than what people are expecting them to.
Yeah, no, I think that, Trevor Lawrence is one of those type of guys that if he gets the right, you've mentioned it multiple times, if he gets the right pieces around him, I think he could be super, super, super next level elite. So we'll see how all that builds out there. Moving to our next hero, this is one of the closest connections I have to my Panthers. I'll go ahead and the Panthers. We do not have an inspired hero this year because we very much are in a rebuilding mode. But this next hero is inspired by a guy that the Panthers took in the draft years ago, Christian McCaffrey, who is now with the San Francisco 49ers. And he's a guy that McCaffrey, he can do everything. And so when this young man had his nuclear infused hot dog and started getting his superpowers, he went straight to the inspiration of Christian McCaffrey, and he became McArmy Knife. And so he's a hero that can do it all. He's got that arm that is the Swiss Army style knife. And I think a really cool concept. And I think he's inspired by a really cool player. Let's talk about his favorite on-field player, Christian McCaffrey. Cooper, and what are you thinking you'll see out of him this year with the 49ers?
Yeah, when Christian McCaffrey was at Carolina, he was the undisputed best player in fantasy football. He might have been the best player in fantasy football history when he was with the Panthers and on the field. We saw that big year where he stayed healthy. I believe that was 19.
17.
No, 18. It was either 18 or 19. I think it was 19. The year where he exploded. He put up like 430 fantasy points, which for a running back is like an astronomical number. I think he had the most points by a non-quarterback the year, but like 100+ points. That's how good he was. And we saw that it came down to, after that, can he stay on the field? Because he just touches the ball so much. He goes to San Francisco with an offensive genius like Kyle Shanahan, and Kyle Shanahan puts him to work and uses him so efficiently. His touches are so efficient. There's not a wasted touch by him. Every time they're using all of his bullets to the fullest capacity. They don't want to run him into the ground with crappy touches and end up getting him hurt. They are using him only when they need to use him, and he's getting 10+ yards every time he touches the ball, which is really good because he's still going to touch the ball like 15 to 20 times a game. That's close to, he's going to have 100+ total yards almost every single game when he goes out there. There's a reason he's going top 3 in fantasy drafts. He is that guy in fantasy. He will always be that guy, and he's probably going to stay that guy in fantasy. And I'm super high on McCaffrey, and I think a lot of people are.
Yeah, and I think you can, pencil if McCaffrey is healthy, you can pencil McArmy Knife in at near the top of the Color Pop leaderboard at the end of the season. Let's next move into one that if there is a player that really we don't need to talk about, it's the guy that inspired this next hero. So this next hero, he is a magician. He has all types of magical powers, and he takes that from his on-field inspiration, Mr. Patrick Mahomes. The hero, of course, is Merloms. He is Patrick Mahomes' biggest fan. He's the magician, the wizard of the home team heroes. And again, you could probably keep this one short and sweet. Patrick Mahomes, do we really need to say a whole lot about him?
Best player in
All right.
football. It's been for the past
Moving on.
3 years.
Moving on. All right. Next up, let's go up to Boston. And we have an interesting hero theme here. The hero is Musket. And certainly, if you think back to the role of the Patriots and kind of the inspiration that the Patriots took their team name from up there in New England, we felt that this was a good angle to go with for a hero. And he is inspired by another trigger man, Mac Jones, the quarterback now of the New England Patriots. Big fan base for them, obviously galvanized by all those Super Bowls when Tom Brady was there. It's the, Mac Jones, not quite proven yet, but I think a lot of high hopes for him, and really a team that we felt we wanted to have represented in Home Team Heroes, that fan base we wanted them to have a hero in, and Mac Jones was the guy that inspired Mr. Musket here. So what's your take on Mac Jones, Coop?
Yeah, I mean, Bill Belichick's a coach. One thing he's always done is he's never made his players feel comfortable with their starting role. Even with Tom Brady, he would try to bring guys in to make Tom Brady feel uncomfortable. It's kind of wild to think about. That's the kind of guy he is. And he's made it clear with Mac Jones. Mac Jones is the starter here. They cut Zappy. They cut Malik Cunningham, moved them to the practice squad. So they're obviously got all their eggs in Mac Jones. Mac Jones is their guy this year. They got an elite running back in Ramondre Stevenson. They pick up Ezekiel Elliott to do a lot of short yardage work and goal line work. I mean, it's a Bill Belichick team. You can never go wrong with betting on a Bill Belichick team. And he's obviously betting on Mac Jones. He didn't even bet on Tom Brady this heavy. So, I mean, that's a good sign if you're a Mac Jones fan, if you're a Patriots fan. And, yeah, I think Musket, Bill Belichick's got his eggs in his basket for a reason. So, I'm trusting Bill Belichick on this one, that he's making the right call.
That makes sense to me. All right, next up is a hero that I know you had a big hand in coming up with from a conceptual standpoint. His name is Quake, and he is inspired by Mr. Austin Eckler. You want to take us through kind of a little bit of the thinking on the hero himself and kind of how that inspiration came together, and then move into a little bit of color on what you're thinking for Eckler's season?
Yeah, so, I mean, Austin Eckler, you've seen this guy. If you see this guy in the weight room without a shirt off, this guy is big, man. Austin Eckler is a big, strong man. He's a massive guy, and it just made sense. We had to make him strong. He's breaking the ground. He's so strong. He's Quake, and he runs like he's causing earthquakes. If you watch this guy run, it looks like he stomps every time he hits the ground. He's running so hard.
He runs hard, aggressive.
Yep. I mean, Austin Eckler, he came in that one year when Melvin Gordon kind of stopped performing, and he took over that backfield, and the Chargers never looked back. They said, all right, we got Austin Eckler. We're good. And they have put a lot of faith in him, and he's proven himself every year. The guy is a machine on the goal line. He's so good at goal line work. He gets all the touchdowns on the goal line in that offense. He catches a ton of passes from Justin Herbert. Justin Herbert loves throwing those swing passes to Eckler. He still gets the 20-plus carries a game. He is the second best fantasy running back. Arguably, you could say he's better than McCaffrey in fantasy. He's the only running back. They're 1A, 1B for top fantasy running backs. Last year, it was Eckler. This year might be McCaffrey, or still could be Eckler. Eckler was a can't-miss guy. I believe he was 100% a can't-miss guy. He's probably the top fantasy running back. He was last year, and I'm expecting another big year from him, man. Herbert's fully healthy. They added some receivers, which should take some of the load off of him, which is normally a good thing for players when you take less of a load off of them. They can be more efficient with their touches. So I'm expecting a big year out of him.
All right. Next up, we will go to a hero that's inspired by Devante Adams, a guy that's kind of had some changes in scenery for his career, but a guy that still has that drop step off the line where you don't know where he's going. Is he going left? Is he going right? Is he juking past you? Just really something that he does at another level. And his hero inspiration, which is Shadow Strike, uses a very similar talent, a very similar way that he can move and come out of the shadows at you and basically drop step you and come at you from behind. And a superpower that I think is really fitting to take on as his power when he's inspired by a player like Devante Adams and what he does on the field. So what are you thinking for Adams and the 2023 season?
Yeah, so, we saw what Devante Adams, when he was in Green Bay with Rodgers, he was the top receiver in the league. There was no question. Devante was that dog. He went out there. He was getting you 30-plus fantasy points a game. And then he gets into some beef with Aaron Rodgers and the Packers. He moves. He heads to Vegas to team up with his old college teammate from Fresno State, Derek Carr. And he still produced at an elite level with Derek Carr as his quarterback. And now Derek Carr's gone, but he's still there, and Jimmy Garoppolo is there. And Jimmy Garoppolo is known for feeding his top receivers the football. We saw that with Debo when he was playing with Debo in the 49ers. He loves feeding his top receivers. And Devante Adams really doesn't have any competition for touches there. He is the alpha receiver. The receiver 2 there, not that good. It's him versus their top DBs. He's going to get double teamed, and it's not going to matter because that's how good Devante Adams is. I mean, he's an elite wide receiver, and he should be elite for a couple more years. He's getting up there in age, but I do not see a regression coming this year. I think he's going to have another big year. I mean, he's just Devante Adams. He's just every year he's a lock for 1,000 yards, 5+ touchdowns. He's just that guy.
Yeah, and I'm a real big fan of this shadow strike concept. It's not one that's it doesn't play on a name or something maybe quite as obvious, but it plays on a skill that I think is unique to Devante Adams. If you watch some film breakdowns of him and how he creates separation and whatnot, I think that Shadow Strike did a really good job when he put his persona together, and so he'll be pulling very hard for Devante Adams to have a great year. Next up is this is a hero that I just it's kind of like Gravedigger for me. It's another one that I just vibe with. I just really like it. I mean, he is just standing there like a total badass, and his name is Shepard, and he took his inspiration from another Dallas Cowboy, and that is CeeDee Lamb. So kind of an obvious play there for Shepard herding up the sheep and the lambs. But I love this hero. When I saw this origin concept come through, I was like, oh, that is awesome. I mean, he is just there like daring you to challenge him. Certainly a force within the home team heroes is Shepard, and he'll be acutely tuned in this season to what his favorite player CeeDee Lamb is doing. So maybe take us through that and kind of what you think of him. We've already talked about the Cowboys, but maybe let's talk a little bit more about Mr. CeeDee Lamb specifically.
Yeah, CeeDee Lamb is obviously a bona fide top 5, top 10 wide receiver in football. We've seen it the last couple of years. Last year, he struggled early in the season with Cooper Rush at quarterback, and it made people doubt him a lot. And then Dak Prescott comes back from injury. He comes back in that offense, and then CeeDee Lamb becomes CeeDee Lamb again. He ended the year last year as one of the best receivers in fantasy, and I think that's just going to carry over to this year. I have CeeDee Lamb having a massive year this year, and I'm really, really high on him. And I'm high on this Cowboys offense in general, though, so I'm really, really high on him. I took him in our office fantasy league. I'm all in on CeeDee Lamb, so I'm buying all the shares of CeeDee Lamb I can in fantasy.
All right. Well, I know you're in on the Cowboys for sure. You've made that clear. Now let's move up to the Motor City and a hero that I think is one of the more obvious inspired heroes. He is Solaris, or Solaris, however you want to say it. And it's up to you as the collector to decide how you want to pronounce it. But he is inspired by another guy that has maybe a couple different ways that people say it, although I guess there's probably only one technical right one for him. Amon-Ra St. Brown. Did I say that right? Is it Amon-Ra? Yeah. All right. And he's, of course, a dude for the Detroit Lions. He is Solaris's favorite player, and Solaris will be certainly tuned in on him. I love this concept, this whole kind of sun god floating in the air, that staff that he's got, I think that type of Egyptian style helmet and headgear, I think that has a specific name, but I'm not 100% sure what it is. But just overall, just a really cool concept for a hero. Certainly a guy that's really powerful, and being able to wield the power of the sun would be an incredibly strong superpower to have. But let's talk about his favorite player on the field and what you're looking for out of Amon-Ra St. Brown this year, Cooper.
Yeah, before I start talking about Amon-Ra, I want to throw in, this is actually my personal favorite. I think this concept, 10 out of 10 concept, came out so cool, floating in the air. He just looks so, I don't know, I wouldn't mess with him. I wouldn't mess with someone floating in the air, harnessing the power of the sun. And it also turns out I love Amon-Ra St. Brown. I love that whole Lions offense personally. I mean, Jared Goff came in there. He revitalized his career last year in this Detroit offense. I think they're going to make the playoffs this year. And I think a large portion that's going to be because of Amon-Ra. I have him I would call it a breakout year last year. I think this is the year he goes from a good player to a superstar. I think he's going to take that next leap forward, and he's going to become an elite wide receiver in the NFL. And I'm really, really high on him. If I have a pick in the later half of the first round of my fantasy drafts, get your hands on Amon-Ra if you can. I mean, guy is an absolute stud. And I've been looking at what his projected numbers are, and they just seem so low to me. I see him blowing his projected numbers out of the water this year. And I'm expecting big things from this Lion team, and I'm expecting big things from Amon-Ra St. Brown.
Yeah, I was looking at that when I saw because we went off of projections to kind of see where we think the color pops would land for the year. And I remember looking at his saying, that just doesn't sound right. Like I agree with you. I think he's going to probably outpunch where most people have him. All right, next up is a guy that's spent a good bit of time in the news. The hero has not, but the player that inspired the hero has spent a good bit of time in the news. Those that have been watching know that Jonathan Taylor has had some discussions of would he get traded, ended up not. Now he's on the PUP list for the first 4 weeks. But he has a big fan in a hero from Indianapolis called Stitcher. And so if you think of this, he's got the needle, he's got the thread. You think about what a tailor would do, tailoring clothes. I think it's a pretty unique concept, one that, we'll have to kind of wait 4 weeks for him to start scoring some points from his favorite players' on-field activity. But I think a hero concept that is pretty cool. And I guess let's maybe skip ahead and talk about what Jonathan Taylor should be. Hopefully after 4 weeks. I know it sounds like the Colts are trying to mend some fences here. Hopefully he's going to be out there and he'll put up a good. I see you shaking your head there. What's your take, Cooper? You're the guy that follows this stuff a lot closer.
Yeah, he's been in the first couple games on the PUP list, and I know the Colts want to rebuild their bond with him, but the problem is that he wants to get paid, and running backs aren't getting paid right now because of your Ezekiel Elliott's and your Le'Veon Bells and these really bad running back contracts that have happened in the past couple of years. But, I mean, Jonathan Taylor's a stud. We saw it in 2021 when he had that monster year for the Colts. Guy is probably one of the best pure rushers in the league. And the thing, he's going to get traded. I feel like it's almost inevitable that he gets traded. And if he goes to a team like Miami, Jonathan Taylor is going to be a force in fantasy if he goes to a team like Miami. That team throws the ball so deep. The defense is going to have to prepare for that, which is just going to open up the run game for him so much. Miami's looking like his most likely landing spot. And if that happens, I am buying all the Jonathan Taylor stock I can if he ends up in Miami. I mean, that's just my personal opinion, but he's going to have to sit out the first 4 games on the PUP list. So we'll see how he bounces back from that.
All right. Next up, let's move over to a fun hero. This is Mr. Supersize, and Supersize is inspired by Nick Chubb. So we had a little bit of a memeable hero there in baseball. I would say that Mr. Supersize here is our memeable type hero here in football. Nothing but love for Nick Chubb. Obviously, he is a brute force, and there's not a whole lot chubby about him. But his name it kind of inspired this take on the hero, and it's a fun one, and and his inspiration is quite the on-field force. Talk to us a little bit, Cooper, about Nick Chubb and kind of what you see there in that backfield this year.
Yeah, so with Nick Chubb, I mean, Nick Chubb's probably the best pure rusher in the league right now. If I had to pick a running back and I can't throw him a pass, you're probably taking Nick Chubb. We saw it last year when he didn't get injured, what he's capable of. Guy's an absolute stud. Now you take out Kareem Hunt. Kareem Hunt took a lot of the receiving work and a couple of the rushing attempts. That should up his rushing attempts close to 20-25. He should get more receptions, which of course PPR, we love receptions out of our running backs. I could see a massive year out of Nick Chubb. Personally, in my fantasy drafts, I have him as the RB3 behind Eckler and McCaffrey. I think he's the next best guy after those two. And I think he's going to have a big year. There's a lot of people thinking Deshaun Watson's going to figure it out this year and take a step forward. And again, if your quarterback takes a step forward, your running back takes a step forward. That's generally how it goes. So expecting a big year, and I think a lot of people are expecting a big year. So we'll see what he does.
And one thing, sorry, I didn't mean to overtalk you there, but one thing I also like to look at too, just from I say it a lot of times, the 65 IQ play. He's had a lot of years there where he has had some reduction in the wear and tear on him. And now being able to, like you said, pull the reins off and be that true RB1 in that system and kind of get all those touches, get the receptions as well. I mean, he's the kind of guy that could have now a breakout year, and hopefully, he's been fairly durable, and he's had some of that wear and tear reduction. So,
Yep.
going to be interesting to watch. So let's move to a guy now who has not necessarily had a lot of wear and tear reduction, because he's been running over some people. And this hero is called Tank, and he is inspired by a player on the field that is an absolute tank. And that player is Mr. Derrick Henry. And I remember watching him when he was at Alabama and just thinking to myself, what on earth did they feed this guy to create this machine that he is? And then seeing him get in the NFL and just what he's been able to just, I mean, he is just an absolute tank. And I think this hero inspiration for him, his biggest fan, Tank, I mean, the hero took on Tank treads and everything. So he's ready to roll you over. Let's talk about the player that he'll be locked in on, Derrick Henry.
Yeah, I mean, with Derrick Henry, he's one of the few running backs in the league you can run an offensive around. We saw, like, back in the day in the 80s and the 90s, offenses were ran around running backs. The running backs were the heart and soul of those offenses. Nowadays, you don't see that. The heart and soul's quarterbacks, and the running backs happen to be there in everywhere other than Tennessee. In Tennessee, Derrick Henry is the focal point of that offense. He's getting 30 carries a game. He's running through guys. They want to run the ball and then run play action off of Derrick Henry. That's what they did when they were making those deep playoff runs. They have a good defense. And that team they're a ground and pound team. That's what they're built to do. And they have the perfect running back to do that with Derrick Henry. I mean, I would never want to stand this guy's way. I mean, it'd be scary, man. If that guy was running at me, I'd be scared personally. I'm not in the NFL, though, so probably not as scared for those guys. But still, I mean, seeing him stiff arm guys into the sideline, I mean, I would hate for that to be me and see me everywhere on ESPN. I mean, guy's an absolute stud. And, yeah, I mean, hopefully we don't see regression from him this year. He's getting up there in age. He's been taking a lot of carries, 30 a game. I think he should continue, though. I still think he's got a couple years. He's so big and strong, man. It's hard to beat that guy up. So, yeah, I'm expecting another good year from Derrick Henry.
Yeah, I mean, he's moving a lot of mass, and it's the exact point that counterpoint to what I just made about Chubb. He has had a lot of that wear and tear, but if you just look at someone and say, who in the NFL do you think is built to take it?
It's him.
He's got to be that guy, yep. Right? So next up is my personal second favorite of the football hero concepts. I really love this one. Cooper, actually, credit you. I think this was a concept that you put into the brainstorming, and it came all the way through. And it is Tongue Twister. And he is inspired by a player that has quite the tongue twister name, Mr. Tua Tagovailoa. And I hope I said it correctly. But again, we talked about Jalen Hurts earlier. Tua was on the opposite side of that big swap out in that national championship game. Tua's a guy that has all the talent. He has all the tools around him. I don't want to steal your thunder there, Cooper, but the big thing for him is he's had a lot of concussions. But Tongue Twister, just I think a really cool concept. And the actual twisted tongue, I thought, was a really unique take on this. I'm all in on this character. I really enjoy the character, and he is all in on Mr. Tua Tagovailoa, and is going to be watching him this year with great attention. So, what do you think about Tua and his year?
Yeah, I mean, with Tua's the big thing about Tua. The thing Tua is the best at is throwing the ball deep. He's the most accurate deep ball quarterback in the league. And lucky for him, he has two of the best deep threats in the NFL, with the best one in Tyreek Hill, and then one of the other best ones in Jalen Waddle. This team, with Mike McDaniels as a coach, they're young, they're fun, they're trying to reinvent football, and they're one of my personal favorite teams to watch. I mean, they just throw the ball. They're dropping 70-yard bombs like it's nothing, and it's so fun to watch. It's such an explosive offense, and I'm all in on this Miami offense. A full year of Tua, they're going to make some noise. Mark my words.
Love it. All right, next up, this hero, Warp, has enjoyed watching his favorite player get paid this offseason. And his favorite player is one that has kind of helped redefine this modern era of quarterback play, and that favorite player is Lamar Jackson. So, again, I think when you look at Lamar Jackson and what he's able to do, it is almost like he moves at warp speed. And so the concept here for Warp, the superhero, coming in and taking on that inspiration, I think, is another one that's super cool, and he'll be locked in on Lamar this year and see what Lamar's going to do. Cooper, what do you feel about Lamar coming into this big contract, got paid off season type year. What are you looking for out of him?
We know what Lamar is. Lamar is one of the most consistent fantasy quarterbacks, and that is mostly because of his rushing upside. The guy's rushing upside, he's going to get 1,000 yards. He's going to get 5 touchdowns on the ground. That's a lot of fantasy points for a quarterback. And so he's always been uber consistent in fantasy. And then this year in the draft, he's been begging for a number one receiver. And I think they have a chance of finding their guy in Zay Flowers. Zay Flowers is so talented. You put him on the outside. You got Mark Andrews at tight end, a super consistent, good tight end option. And you got Lamar Jackson, who's basically a running back and a quarterback at the same time. I mean, if Zay Flowers is that number one receiver, this Baltimore offense will be scary good. And it will probably be one of the best in football. And a lot of that's going to be because of Lamar Jackson and the talent he brings, to that team, and how when he's on that field, he's an absolute game changer.
Yeah, I think that's right. If Flowers puts down a resume that inspires a hero for the 2024 season, it probably means that that Jackson had a big year and the team as a whole had a big year. So now let's move over to a hero that is inspired by a guy whose name you've said several times throughout this discussion. The hero's name is Wobbler, and he is inspired by Jalen Waddle. So when it came time to make the hero here, the Penguin was kind of an obvious route, but there's a character in DC that's a pretty popular character that's already kind of taken over the Penguin. So we had to go in our own unique way. We came up with this idea around the little wobble toys that were popular when I was a kid. And I was really happy the way this came together. He's got that flashy penguin style mask, but yet he's got that wobble tool at the bottom. And you'll see that take on some different iterations in his superpower. But Wobbler, a very powerful hero, and he is inspired and is the biggest fan of one of these guys that Cooper has mentioned many times already, Jalen Waddle. So you want to maybe hit a couple more just quick thoughts on him? I know you've already spoken to him a couple of times.
Yeah, I mean, Jalen Waddle was a guy that I've been a huge Jalen Waddle guy since he was at Alabama. I remember when he was at Alabama that year with Mac Jones. It was him and Devante Smith as their top 2 receivers. I said the whole preseason, I said Jalen Waddle is a better receiver than Devante Smith. I said all preseason, and then Jalen Waddle gets hurt. And then we know what Devante Smith did once Jalen Waddle got hurt. Devante Smith won a Heisman Trophy as a wide receiver, which is an insane feat. But I still believe Jalen Waddle was a better receiver than Devante Smith going into the draft. And, of course, Devante Smith obviously goes before Jalen Waddle. He won a Heisman Trophy as a receiver, which is a crazy feat. And then their rookie years, Jalen Waddle breaks the rookie reception record. And it's like, I don't know. I kind of, personally, I was a little happy when he did that because it kind of made my take right. But Jalen Waddle is an elite wide receiver. He was elite his rookie year. They add Tyreek Hill. He takes another leap forward. And, I mean, when Tua was healthy, Jalen Waddle was a top 10 receiver in fantasy football. So a full year of Tua should make Jalen Waddle a top 10 receiver in fantasy football.
Yeah, look for Wobbler to stack him up in color pops for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he's the best wide receiver 2 in the league. You put him on a lot of NFL teams. He's the top dog. There's very few teams he's not the top dog receiver on. There's even teams with better fantasy receivers than him. If you put him on that team, he's probably the best receiver on that team. That's just how talented this guy is. And, yeah, he's an absolute stud, and I'm super high on Jalen Waddle and always will be probably.
Yeah, I don't disagree with any of your takes on any of that stuff. So next up, and this will actually wrap us up. This is one that if I was going to do a super short print of some kind and make him hard to find in this set, I would have probably chosen this character, Yeti. Thinking about Bigfoot and a Bigfoot sighting and that sort of thing, but we didn't want to mess up our set dynamics, so we didn't do that. He'll have the normal rarity as every other hero in the base set, but he is inspired by a big, strong tight end that is a huge piece of that Kansas City offense, a big target for Mr. Patrick Mahomes. He's inspired by Travis Kelce. And Yeti, biggest fan of Travis Kelce, and he'll be locked in on Kansas City this year and Kelce and what they're doing. What do you think of their season, Cooper?
Yeah, I mean, Jalen, first off with Travis Kelce, the name Big Yeti on his podcast with Jason Kelce, his brother, they said that's his nickname. It's a great nickname, fits him perfectly. And Travis Kelce, when healthy, he's the best tight end probably in NFL history. I mean, what he's doing is absolutely insane. He was a good tight end, and then he got an elite quarterback, and he just went to this next level. I mean, he's a force in fantasy football. If you have Tyreek or Travis Kelce on your team, you have a positional advantage every single week because you know your tight end is going to be better than their tight end. I mean, that's made him go up to a first-round draft pick, a mid-first-round draft pick, like pick 4 or 5 in fantasy leagues for a tight end. And it's absolutely wild, but it's 100% warranted. I've played with Travis Kelce before in fantasy, and you feel like you just have an unfair advantage going into every single week. He just hyperextended his leg, sadly, yesterday, and he's missing week 1. So hopefully he can bounce back strong from that injury, and we can see the Travis Kelce we all love to see. He's super fun, super charismatic, and he seems like he's a great guy on and off the field.
I actually missed that news yesterday, but that podcast with him and his brother is really fun awesome to tune into that. So that's it for the slate of the 30 heroes for Home Team Heroes football. I hope you all are excited about this set list. We're going to be doing a lot more between Dobbs and myself and Cooper and others on the team to kind of unpack the seasons that the players have that inspired the heroes. But then also remember, these heroes, they're not the player. They're the superhero that ate the nuclear hot dog, and they're pulling for these players, and they have their own collectability aspects and their own life and their own world that's coming together. And we can't wait to shape some of that up for you. And we hope that you're all just going to fall in love with these heroes and kind of find your own lane in how you want to collect this Home Team Heroes Football 2023 set. So with that, we'll wrap it up. Cooper, thank you. Really great insights that you brought to the table today. I really appreciate that. And for everyone out there, have fun collecting Home Team Heroes Football 2023.